Hey, it's Lisa. It is day 66, and I am coming on to start sharing my story and kind of start telling you the why behind what I'm doing here. I think it may be a worthwhile listen. I hope you find it interesting. In order for me to really do this story justice, though, I wanted to start really from the beginning. So I'm going all the way back. So I grew up in a small rural town in Massachusetts, and I was raised in a really artistic and musical family. My parents were both educators. They were music teachers and then became college professors. And I always studied music and sang. I played piano at a really early age. Like, my mom was a piano teacher when I was still in the womb, I believe. So she was like teaching piano, and then she eventually became a college professor. But I studied piano, when I was like 3 years old. I started, playing the piano. She taught me a lot. And then I started kind of fooling around myself with it, just like self-taught, and then eventually started taking lessons. But I started picking up guitar and trumpet as well in grade school. But singing was really like my first love musically. I also loved painting and drawing, and I really developed an appreciation for the arts when I was really young. I loved just looking at beautiful pieces of artwork. I remember my mom, one of my earliest memories with my mom was actually she was showing me these prints, these art prints of famous pieces that were in museums and everything. That was when I was really young. I'm not really sure how old, but so in high school, I continued that love of art, and I studied a lot of art in high school, and I actually thought of possibly like going into architecture, but I wound up applying to and getting into like a design school in California. I was really obsessed with going to the West Coast. Growing up in a colder climate, I thought, yeah, let me go out to California. And so I went out to California. I met one of my best friends. We're still friends to this day, and like friends for life. But she and I both went out to California from Massachusetts, and when I got my degree, I moved back to Massachusetts, and I started working in a small design firm. But it really was not what I thought it was going to be, and it just didn't light me up. And so because I was really fortunate, to have parents that both worked at colleges, I was able to take some classes for free. That was just part of the benefit that they had. And so I took a bunch of classes at one of the colleges, and just explored. I took more art. I took some business management, and I also took some theater classes. And then while I was studying theater, it really made me want to get into acting. And so at that same time, I met a guy. He was from Queens, New York, and he was really into acting and film and stuff like that. And so honestly, I followed a boy to New York. So we got an apartment together in Queens. Not my favorite place, part of New York or whatever, but we got a place together in Queens. That relationship really didn't work out. So I just, it ended badly actually. But from there, I think that was after about a year or so. From there I moved into the city, and then that was in a shared apartment. So it was roommates, not my thing either. But yeah, that was not really a great situation. I think the guy that I was renting our room from in his apartment was kind of shady. I think he was like overcharging me, but whatever. I got out of there after a couple months. I was temping, and I landed a position at United Way, not United Way, sorry, the UN, UNICEF. So I was working for UNICEF for a little while, a couple of years. It was like a contract position. And then I was studying acting. That was like the purpose of moving to New York, besides following the guy. And so I was studying acting part-time, and I was still really into singing and playing guitar. I used to like to take my guitar to Central Park, and I'd just sit there and sit in the sun and play guitar and sing, and, you know, sometimes with friends. You know, one of my friends from acting school, she actually asked me if I had ever heard Bonnie Raitt, and I hadn't at that time, and I started listening to Bonnie, and I was like, whew, I loved it. I loved her singing and her guitar playing, and you know, just started singing a bunch of songs that she sang. I was like trying to figure out who, you know, what her story was and who she listened to, and I started getting into like Sippy Wallace and other blues singers, and then the guy guitar players that she listened to. That was so cool. So from there, I started going to blues clubs, and the first blues place that I ever sang at, I sat in at Manny's Car Wash. It was like they had the Sunday Blues Jam, and I was always like really social, so I never had problems like meeting people. I always met tons of musicians, and I met some really amazing musicians and really cool people, and then I also met some not so nice people, which I'll get to in a minute. But I met a lot of really amazing blues musicians that were like some major blues players. There were some guys that were playing in some of the smaller venues actually in New York still, like Clarence Gatemouth Brown and Johnny Clyde Copeland and Junior Wells. And then Albert Collins, I met him at his show at the Lone Star Roadhouse in the 50s. That was like 52nd or something like that, like on the west side. And when I went to an Etta James show at the Lone Star, I met her trombone player, and he was kind enough to invite me to their show at Jones Beach. So I went to the Jones Beach show, and Etta was on the bill with Ray Charles and John Lee Hooker. And I didn't get to meet Ray. I wish I had. That would have been cool. But I did meet John Lee, and we became friends and started like talking on the phone now and then. And he invited me to his show at the Beacon. And so at this point, I really wanted to like be a blues singer and, you know, get into music and stuff, and start like performing and recording. And I had started a little jam session of my own and done some gigs, a few gigs here and there. But John Lee, so he was on the bill at the Beacon, and he invited me, you know, to come to that show the next time he was in town. So he was on the bill with B.B. King and Buddy Guy, and that was great. I got to meet B.B., and his manager Sherman was really nice to me. And you know, I'm sitting in the green room at a table with John Lee Hooker and Buddy Guy. And so Buddy like reaches his hand out to like shake my hand, and John Lee like slaps it back. And it was the funniest thing. He was like, "Don't shake her hand. Mine's softer than hers." And so we were like cracking up at that, you know. They always had the funniest stories. They were just characters together, you know. John Lee had like this stammer, but he was so cool. Anyway, so Buddy and I, like, I think John Lee was kind of jealous. Like, he didn't want me to get too friendly with Buddy. That's why he slapped his hand. But there was nothing going on with John Lee. But anyway, Buddy and I became friends. And so we were friends like for years after that. And I went to see many of his shows like all over the place. But I just was really into blues, and I got a kick out of them because they were like so competitive. They used to like steal musicians from each other sometimes, you know. It was just like, it was really funny. But so they were competitive, you know. But I think I don't know. Buddy and I, you know, we became friends and remained friends. And then at that time, I just decided I was going to try to pursue a career in music. And I was just going to try to learn as much as I possibly could about music. So, I started thinking about like going back to school for music. And, because I was always talking to people and meeting people, I met lots of musicians in and around the city. And I met this guitar player who seemed like a nice guy, said he went to Berkeley. So of course that kind of turned my head. I just was interested in that. And I found out the hard way that he really was not a nice guy at all. He really pulled the wool over my eyes. I was young and impressionable, and I was raised in like a predominantly white middle class community. My parents raised me right. They raised me with kindness and love, and they taught me, to treat everyone with kindness and judge people according to the content of their character and not the color of their skin. And, so I got really involved with this guy. He was charming at first. And then, I got in, a little too deep, and trusted him. I really shouldn't have trusted him. And he started just doing a number on me mentally. Like, he was emotionally abusive. He started getting physical. Not before this one thing happened, but I had to go away. I went, to visit my folks, and I had a cat, and so I was in this studio apartment that I had moved. I moved from that shared space up to like a studio when I was working at the UN, and it was okay. It was a little apartment, but I trusted him to watch over my cat, and he ended up like moving in while I was gone. Not okay. He told me that he moved some stuff in, but I was like, what? That's not what I agreed to or wanted. And when I came back, things went from bad to worse. He started getting more abusive emotionally and physically, and, started grabbing me. He pinned me, to a wall at one point. I was trying to leave to get away from him, and at one point, like I had to pick up a kitchen knife. I thought I was gonna have to like stab the guy, but it was crazy. Anyway, I was like, I just wanted him to leave. I asked him to leave many times. He wouldn't. He was really nasty to me, and I don't know. What would you have done? I didn't know what to do at the time, and I felt kind of trapped. So I didn't want the situation to get even worse. And what do you do when somebody won't leave your place? I mean, call the cops? Yeah, probably. But it was hard to do that with this guy. He was really like physically imposing, and just nasty person. So I'm gonna leave the story at that for today, and I will pick up where I left off next time. I will get to how I got this. This was not from domestic abuse, by the way. This is another interesting story, but I I'll get there. I promise. I will let you know how that happened. But I'm not involved in a relationship right now. There's nobody in my life, and I'm not perfect. I'm just trying to do my thing and learning along the way. Day 66, got 9 more days. This is my second time through 75 Hard, by the way. I did it once in 2023 successfully, and then kind of fell off my discipline. So, you know, one of the reasons I wanted to pick it back up again is because I was successful last time, and I think I can do it again. Hopefully nothing will get in my way. This thing almost got in the way, but I will save that for another day. So I hope you're cheering me on. Please, I need your support. You know, you can chime in if you want. I would love to hear from you. And you can let me know what you would have done if that had been you in that situation. So, all right. Thanks for watching.